Bryan.
Okay, I'll do the best. I don't know where to start. Should I start with hell or should I start in heaven?
Well, let's start with hell because we want to get to heaven as part of the healing process.
Okay. Oh, boy. Yeah, here we go, folks. We're strap on your seatbelts. We're going to take off. If I can do two of these in 15 minutes apiece. We'll see. Well, I got to ask a question, folks. Have you ever found yourself in a situation that you simply cannot get out of? Well, folks, that actually happened to me, as Randy was talking about, in 1980 in Tucson, Arizona, where I accidentally drank some creek water that someone left in a thermos. So within 24 hours, I became violently ill. I contracted cholera and who knows what else. And 3 days later, I died. And as many people who with after-death experience talk about, we all remember our last breath. It's something you just don't forget. And for me, I was incredibly surprised that I was still alive. At that nanosecond when I took my last breath, I lost all my sense of a militant atheist because at that time in my life, I was a militant atheist with an attitude. And like a lot of people report, I floated above my body. I felt the greatest calm I ever felt. I had no more pain. I looked around the room and then boom, I drifted through the ceiling into the most profound, peaceful, dark, black void floating toward a brilliant light off in the distance. And at the same time, I felt this peace, unimaginable peace and love. You can't even describe what I felt. And I heard this music, profound music, and this beautiful singing, and that simply proclaimed the mysteries of God's character, his character traits. That's all I can describe it as. At the same time, bits and pieces would float into my mind, my life flashed before me. I saw how teachers, how schools, movies, media, the world especially I lived in at the time, and especially all myself, how I took it in, and how I became an atheist, how I painted Christianity as cruel, oppressive, that Christians were closed-minded bigots. We got to get rid of these people. That's how I thought. That was my mentality. I actually thought that God owed humanity apology for creating us, if there was a God at that time. And so as I was approaching there, I saw all these things, and I saw the light coming closer, and I saw that I was coming to a figure standing upon a big rock that was suspended in the darkness, and behind the rock was an amazing panorama that I saw. It was a wall, it was a city, a beautiful city. Then it disappeared, and I landed my feet first right in front of this figure where this light was coming out of the figure, and he had a robe on and a hood, and I just fell down like a dead sack of wheat, and someone picked me up, stood me up there, and all the love and calmness I felt left me in a flash, and and in an instant it was revealed how I gained God's love by the evidence, by how I lived my life. I mean, I was being judged by God's love. This sounds really strange to some people, but this was a reckoning. See, God's love judged me by showing who and what I was really like on the inside that no one sees at the same time what other people saw on the outside. I saw how I betrayed people, abandoned people, rejected people, used people like a commodity, how I mocked people, how I sold drugs. Yes, I sold drugs to a church youth group and a skating thing, got them all hopped up. I kid you not. I lied. I saw every relationship I crucified. I saw every wound I inflicted, and I was not a nice person. In falling, it's true. Standing before the living God is more fearful than I saw in hell. I mean, it was every ounce of you could not hide from it. And then God showed me how good he was to me despite myself, and how he spared my life. He spared my life from car wrecks, so forth, etc. Gave me many, many chances, sent people to witness to me. I turned them away and mocked them and did some choice words to them and stuff. And at that moment, I began to realize I was standing before Jesus. He wore a robe, a hood covered his face. I could see parts of his beard that was caked with blood, where the other parts were just simply pulled out. That's where the blood came from. I saw the nail prints in his wrist, and at the instant I knew I drove those nails in, proved by how I lived my life, how I hurt people and did things, how I mocked him as well. And then he spoke to me, telling me that I would see a land unknown that's best forgotten, but not to be left unseen. But this part got me. But returning is an option yet to be decided. Yet to be decided. When you arrive and feel a sense of overwhelming, say my name and my title, Jesus Christ. And then I was lifted up, and I felt a sense of what could I say? I was carried toward a opening. It looked like a door opened like a scroll, and I went through that into a tornado-like spinning vortex, that like a tunnel. It was yellow. I was heading toward a yellowish light, and the sights and sounds and smells were terrible. It was very hot, and then I hit that yellow light, fell through the sky, bounced on the ground, and I noticed I was coming on looked like a hill overlooking a valley with a house on the other side. And all these people ran out of the house and welcomed me to this place that I entered into paradise, slapped me on my back, and then they surrounded me, and I began to see what they really looked like. They were demonic-looking beings, just creatures. Some look like gargoyles without wings. Others look like ancient pagan deities. Others are reptilian-like. There are various sizes and shapes. Some look like insects. Some look just foul, devious, distorted beings. And they all rush me, wanting to tear me to shreds. And a sense of overwhelming is an understatement. In this place, you want to wake up, but you can't. You ever been in a place where you're in a nightmare and you can't wake up from? You haven't. No one has yet. If I want to spare you of this place, folks. So I cried out his name, Jesus Christ, like a machine gun. And folks, I want to tell you, when I said that, these entities could touch me, poke me, but they couldn't grab hold of me and bite me and shred me, because these creatures hated humanity. They loved to mimic humanity, and they loved to destroy humanity. That's all I can say about them in a short amount of time. And this one creature came up to me, and I called, my nickname for him is Lizard Breath, because he was a reptilian thing, and I can't describe his face because his breath was so foul that it distorted his face. He pointed to follow him. So I went and followed him. He came to what looked like the horizon. He stuck his hand in the horizon, ripped it open like a scroll, and then he stepped up outside, and I did too. I followed him. I didn't know what else to do. And I knew I was standing on a wide, broad road. And I stood on this road, and looking back, I noticed I came out of a small cell. But inside, it looked like the great outdoors. It's different dimension. I can't even describe it. And besides this cube and this cell that I came out of were others pressed against each other, okay? And I could see the people inside these cells. And all I could say, looking at this stuff, I was overwhelmed. All I could say was, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And I found myself later, as I went into the Bible and discovered this, I was in the pit of hell. This is what the Bible calls the pit of hell. In the middle of this pit, across this wide, hellish, broad road, I saw a tornado-like vortexes descending from the opening that was in the middle of this pit, dropping people into the cubes, just like I was, while others were being escorted on the road and being shoved into cubes. Basically, what it was. And so this lizard breath motioned me to move along. We moved along, and I looked inside, and I saw people that were isolated and alone inside these cells. That's what they were doing. They were inside the cells, all alone, and only the demonic world and the beings that I saw earlier, these were the type entities that were their friends. They were the companions. They were the props. They were the chairs. They were the stools. They were the scenery. And these people were living in never-ending nightmares, blended into new nightmares, and these people were never able to wake up. They were reaping what they sown in life in just degrees, just like the Bible teaches, folks. I'm not kidding. People in these cubes were not tormented, nor were they being tortured by God. They were tormented by familiar spirits that were housed into them that actually came in and captured their souls. None of these folks were reformed, and the nature of hell is such that you become worse and you don't become better. The nature of the current hell exposes the real person on the inside, what's really on the inside, your hearts. It exposes and brings to the surface your true sin nature, and is burst in full there. That's all I can say. I'll give you just a few quick illustrations of some people I saw in hell, and then I'm going to try to get to heaven as soon as I can here. Well, I saw this woman inside a coffin scratching to get out. And when I looked into this cell particularly, I was granted in an instant to know their life history, what year they came in, how they came here, what they did in their life. It was just dropped in me like I can't even describe it. And in this life, she was a practicing witch who, I call it the Ezekiel chapter 13, verse 17 through 23 kind, the real McCoy. She cursed people's deaths, hopes, and dreams, and even took their lives. And she was all about robbing any potential goodness with a reckless hate in order to bring forth a new golden age. And she was actually deceived to think that she was doing good following Lucifer. So, and she was inside of a coffin scratching to get out, and that represented it. And I just knew that that's because she killed people's hopes, dreams, demonized innocent people. Some, she even took their lives. So I guarantee you, she's still in that cell. She's probably still in that, let me rephrase that, she is still in that coffin scratching to get out. I saw so many people in there. I saw every one of these people relived every abuse they inflicted, every slanderous word spoken, every lie that was used to support their pride. I saw a woman who liked to toy with people's lives like a cat toys with an injured mouse for the mere pleasure of dishing out mental torment because her own festering wound justified her own acts. She was offered to be healed through counseling, and Christians came up, tried to witness to try to get the wound in her heart healed, but she refused. She liked the power and control. There she was. Whatever she did was coming back to her to haunt her. Those were type of the things I saw. And another thing that I saw that I rarely get a chance to talk about is I came to a place, and it's in my book, A Land Unknown, Hell's Dominion, and I saw a place where what appeared to be alongside the road were telephone poles that extended outside of this pit. And somehow I could see that these poles extended out of the pit and reached into the upper atmosphere of the earth. At the time, I had no clue what I was looking at. I was totally flummoxed. I was scared. I was scared beyond belief. I'm sitting there and I didn't know what was going on. All I know is I'm trying to keep my eye on this lizard creature. Next thing I know, around these poles are a mass sea of demonic creatures of every shape and size. The taller ones have more power than the smaller ones. And they're gathered around these poles, and every once in a while, some of them would jump up and scamper up the poles and go through the ceiling of this place. I saw this into the upper atmospheres of the earth. And I could see these big entities on the tops of these poles, and they were large, and they were singing and humming over certain locations, geographic places like cities, countries, towns, and such. And these songs that they sung produced an ambience over an area to reject and disbelieve who God really is and is like. And this is my terminology for what I saw after I investigated, to create demon zones of occupation on the planet. That's what I called it. And they always cause people to dance to their tunes. To enforce these demon zones, as I call them, they call to the hordes of entities gathered at the base of the poles, calling certain ones below to come up hither and help capture people through deception to bring them to hell below. And I wrote in my book about one horse-headed entity I saw that was about all kinds of sexual abuse of all kinds was released. And it was a horse-headed entity, and it was a bunch of, looked like scales, but they weren't scales. They were looked like the same creature. And it would crawl in and deposit these microscopic, best way I can put it, these little teeny things inside of people's hearts, eat out their conscience to commit these type of acts. And they don't care. They're going to do whatever it takes. We are witnessing some of this behavior today in the halls of government, justifying stuff. Now, don't get me off on politics now. So that's the kind of things I saw. It was years later when I was sitting in a church, I heard that Ephesians chapter 6:12 preached about principalities, powers, rules of darkness, and hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Well, I saw that happening. And so that was sort of, when I came back, one of my main focuses has always been spiritual warfare. I got a little insight on that. And so we moved to the lower levels of this pit, folks, I want to tell you. And I grew weaker and weaker and weaker. And I came to a place, folks, and I just want to share this part with you real quick. And we came to a place that was set apart from the others, and there were a lot of these hellish beings surrounded, a green dentist chair, and they're all leering to me. And this was inside of a cube. And it was like they were trying to say, come on inside. We're going to have your way. Man, they're going to have their way with you, you know. And I stood there, petrified. I did not want to go. I knew I was dead. And this is like a dusty goo. It was wrapped around your feet. And a force was dragging my feet through it. In the mud, there's these little worms with teeth in it and these little moths with teeth in it coming out. And I never felt so alone, so without hope. I never felt a despair like that, ever. And that force dragging me into this place, and all these leering fiends looking at me. And nobody knew where I was. I could not warn anyone about this place. I couldn't tell anybody to stay away. I couldn't tell my parents, hey, I'm not a good old boy, Mom. I couldn't say anything. And as I was being compelled into this place, I was weakening. I couldn't hardly say the name of Jesus anymore because I knew this is where I belonged. This was where my cube would end up, in the lower depths of hell. And I was just did not know what to do. I felt a presence coming behind me, and all these demonic creatures were getting nervous. I thought, well, it could be the head guy at the pitchfork, the devil going to throw me in there. That's what I was thinking. And this was it. I have no hope. There's no escape. This is it. And if I start crying, I can't help it, even though it happened in 1980. Sorry. So I just remember this so clear. No hope. And I felt the presence, and the ground was shake with his footsteps. And I thought, this was it. He's right behind me. He picked me up. It was Jesus. And I saw the nail prints in his wrist. And this really hurt to see his bones pulled apart. It says in Psalms 22, his bones were out of joint, hanging on that cross. I wept in his shoulder, and he carried me out of that place. And so, to this day, I come back and I owe Jesus Christ my life. Plain and simple. I don't care what people think. I owe Christ my life. We went back to the rock. He set my feet upon that rock, folks. And he blew on me and he spoke to me, and I don't have time to share all those details. I came back into my body. And I revived and recovered in a hospital. That's where I got the diagnosis of cholera, and I still don't even know what else I contracted. And years later, to try to sum all this up for you real quick, the years passed. I became a Christian. That when I got back out of the hospital, I sat in a beanbag chair and simply prayed a prayer that some of you can pray right now. Is I say, Lord Jesus, I never want to go back to that awful place. Take me, I'm yours. When I said that, I was in a hot room, a hot Arizona room with no air conditioning in a duplex apartment, and a cool rush of air flowed around me, inside of me. I'm not kidding you. That's how I got born again. Never been the same since. And so one of my prayers was, I never want to go back to that awful place. Never, ever did I ever want to go back to that awful place. And I was all shook out because of what I went through. I did not have a clue what post-traumatic stress was. Sights, sounds, smells would send me off in a minute. And nightmares haunted me. I had nightmares of this place. I'd wake up screaming at night, and things like that. And I couldn't really tell anyone because they'll think that I lost my mind. Yeah, you really went to hell, right? Yeah. And I never wanted to go back to the awful place. And all this drove me to serve God was a vengeance because I did not want to go back to the awful place. So I drowned myself in church activities. I went to street witnessing. And I ended up heading a local youth revival here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I was part of the praise band. I ran the soundboard. And I was appointed the head intercessor of that church. And then I turned my duplex home into a ministry house, and I called it After Hours Ministry. That's how I got the name, Ministries. And it was open 24/7 to the street kids to come in, and we would pray with them and help them because, if you know about how bad life is, you know what I'm talking about. But nothing I could do could erase why me. Why did I come back? Why did I see hell? I deserved hell. Why am I here? I mean, some people call it survivor's guilt, I guess. I don't know. Trauma does that. And then to calm me down, it was about 2.5, right around 3 years later, just simply put, is when the Lord had to calm me down about seeing hell, so he showed me heaven. So I want to share just a little bit about heaven and what he did. He showed me heaven to bring healing inside that I needed to straighten me out. It never once entered my mind a thing like this could happen at the time. And I wasn't in a very pleasant mood at the time because we just finished a series of meetings at the church and I worked myself to death and I was not in a holy mood. And I drove home and I was left holding the bag. I was in a really bad mood and I had to put all the equipment away. I got home late, had to get up early in the morning to go to work. And then I lay down on my bed and the room exploded in bright light and I heard a booming voice, and I kid you not, "Awake, arise, stand to your feet." And guess what I did? I told the voice to shut the bleep up. You can fill in the bleep. And leave me alone. I need sleep. That's what I said. And then I looked around and I went, what the world was that? It happened twice more with the same response. And the next time it happened, I felt like I missed the rapture and didn't know what to think. And then I went back and I heard a still quiet voice, and I know it's Jesus. He said, "Do you remember how you left before?" And I said, "I did." And I believe I was actually translated to heaven. That's all I can say. And then next minute, I was floating through the same void, hearing the same wondrous music. I was heading home. I was accepted by the beloved. This was not like approaching him the last time in the condemned state. I floated to the same rock. I saw the glorious land behind the rock that was surrounded by a grand wall, and there Jesus stood upon the rock. He did not have a hood on. He welcomed me. I cannot describe you what Jesus likes other than he looked like the one like the Son of Man, because he would change, just like it says in Mark chapter 16 when the disciples were walking along the road. He appeared in another form. One minute he had I call it a brownish green eyes. Next minute he had the deepest, bluest eyes I've ever seen. One minute he looked very Jewish, and next minute, I mean, I can't describe him. All I know, I was melted by his love and his compassion in a way that I think Randy can understand. It melts you, and he welcomed me. And he took me on a tour of heaven just to show me and calm me down around that. And with that, I'm going to have to kind of wrap it up and keep everybody in suspense for my upcoming book, I guess, because we're almost out of time here. But I'll give you little hints right now. So we came to, I landed before Jesus at what looked like a gate, like a sheep gate. We walked up this path along a wall, the wall of heaven, the current heaven. And we came to a big pearly gate, white pearl with these blue streaks in it. It was beautiful. And all these angels were coming and going, and from there they would go do task for the Lord. I don't have time to tell you all that. And then Jesus and I walked through to the corridor in the pearly gate. That's what it is. And I noticed, that it looked like appeared that I was chiseled. It was chiseled and it looked like spear points and chiseled away through it. So we walked through it. Everything in heaven has a symbol. Everything in heaven has a meaning. The Bible has such rich depths of meaning, and I'll stop myself right there. I'll start preaching. But I'm telling you, I walked in there and I said, wow, and I walked through there and I had the most profound revelation of the cross of Christ I've ever had. And I've been preaching it ever since. And I just walked through that, and wow. And some people go, "Oh, what is your revelation of Christ?" Well, it's found in the Bible. Okay, I'll tell you that. So don't flip out if you want to go criticize me. Go right ahead. I don't mind. But anyway, I'm just saying it was everything I learned going through that's in the Bible, but with a depth and a detail that is profound. I came out and I went into, and I'm going to end this part of heaven here with this little tidbit for somebody who needs to hear this. I came to what I call a grand field of reunion. I was assailed by a land of liquid love. And it wasn't a love like you or I feel. It's a love that how God unconditionally cherishes, nurtures, takes care of, edifies, trains, equips, provides, so his redeemed can live in his presence and never take advantage of it again. All the things he went through is all wrapped up in this love, and you're overwhelmed by it. My words don't even give it justice. And I actually entered into the protective area of God's love, and I didn't want to leave. And I was in this field, and I call it the Grand Field of Reunion, or the Field of Reunion. And I saw the reunions occur where believers would come through the opening there, and there they were met by people, and they went off to heaven. But the most amazing thing was, and this is the part I feel I want to share real quick before I stop here, and it's this. There was some people who lost their little kids through accidents, cancer, or whatever. Stillbirths, whatever. And then I saw these little infants crawling up to them, and they would transform, and they watch their kids grow up. And they hug, and then they go off to heaven. I saw these women, these Christian women, who in their sinful days or whatever had abortions. They carried a lot of weight of guilt and shame. They feel guilty, they listen to the wrong theology, and so forth, etc. I won't explain that. And they felt condemned. But here they come in there, and they see their little ones coming up to them. Randy, I tell you, they come up to them, and they go, "Hi, Mom. We have eternity." And there was healing in those reunions. With that, I'll go ahead and end, because that's kind of what heaven is like.